One has to ask, them dead, who shall take the throne?
What kind of lessons do we learn from our favorite pieces of fiction? Are they simply a means for escapism and enjoyment, or can they have a tangible impact on our lives? With so many of my favorite RPGs having come from developer Atlus, my answer to that last question is a resounding yes. Metaphor ReFantazio ponders these questions in both concrete and abstract ways through the lens of a politically charged fantasy RPG, further proving that there's real power in the stories games can tell. As familiar as it may feel at times, it also treads new territory with a sense of clarity in its message and an empathy that ripples throughout its harsh world. From its more intimate moments to the grand gestures in its main story, Metaphor makes a loud and clear statement, one that is both relevant to our world today and a timeless examination of the best and worst parts of humanity. Without much pretense, you're put into the shoes of a young man in the cold-hearted kingdom of Urconia. With the reigning king murdered and his only son in a curse-bound coma, a magically driven election kicks off as candidates compete for the open seat on the throne, yourself included.
The people of my land desire a new king, and I shall provide.
The inner workings of the election process and your role within it evolves as the roughly 80-hour story unfolds, but this setup serves as the compelling drama that propels you through a land plagued with racism, inequality, poverty, religious extremism, and exploitation.
Please! I've done nothing wrong!
These themes are at the forefront of Metaphor, and they aren't just set dressing. Even a quick glance at its writing will tell you how it expresses its inherently progressive politics without pulling any punches.
Equal competition doesn't mean equal footing.
As you gain allies, interact with the people who embody these struggles, and travel across the land to earn the support of seemingly disparate societies, the story consistently demonstrates an understanding of the dynamics that give rise to such an ugly world. For a game called Metaphor, it's not exactly interested in subtext, and in some respects, that's to its advantage as it makes its stance unmistakable.
I only wanted not to be alienated for who and what I am.
Metaphor is so clearly built on the RPG foundations of Shin Megami Tensei and Persona. The Persona framework in particular is incredibly effective for exploring its themes and letting you build meaningful connections with the events and people on the ground level. You live life through a daily calendar system. As time marches on and the age of a new king draws nearer, choosing how to spend your segmented afternoons and nights are as vital as making sure you take care of the main objectives that drive the story's major events. Thus, you find a balance between building bonds, tearing through monster-ridden dungeons, and hitting the main quest deadlines. Compared to other Atlus joints, it's done with noticeably less filler, which keeps up the sense of momentum.
Fire!
Take the Bond and Royal Virtue systems, for example. They are adaptations of Persona's social links and social stats, but refined. There's less mystery to how you rank up since the conditions for leveling up bonds are made clearer and progress in virtue stats are explicitly shown. It's one way in which Metaphor delivers already compelling systems more effectively and efficiently. And for a story about gaining the trust and support of people from all walks of life, there's a thematic coherence to taking the time to help those who've been left to rot in their misfortune in an unjust society. Side quests also fill out the in-between moments nicely, taking you to various optional dungeons across the kingdom, either through the guise of hunting for bounties or doing a favor for an NPC. These offer more meat when it comes to combat, with tough enemies that litter these curated dungeons. I eventually saw through the formulaic nature of its dungeon layouts, which got a little repetitive, but the rewards and challenges are worth your time, and they balance out the social aspects well. Metaphor is good about not wasting a moment and constantly giving you something to work toward, helping all of its gameplay systems sensibly feed into each other. Metaphor wouldn't be complete without hard-nosed turn-based combat, however. It largely uses the principles of the SMT press turn system, where both your party and enemies are given turn icons, and exploiting elemental weaknesses award extra actions.
Hulkenberg got them right in their weak spot.
There's both a comfort in these familiar systems and an excitement in the way Metaphor changes things up. That is due in large part to the Archetypes, which is effectively a class-based job system. It offers a level of flexibility not seen in other Atlus RPGs because any party member can specialize in any of the archetypes while also carrying over skills from others they've leveled up. And how you compose your party leads to wild possibilities in combat. As you get into the late game, you'll unlock advanced archetypes that have some truly creative mechanics, especially when you factor in the synthesis attacks, where various combinations of archetypes in the party let you unleash powerful multi-hit spells or tide-turning buffs at the cost of multiple turn icons.
Much thanks.
Thank you.
These new ideas, layered with tried-and-true mechanics, combine into something fresh. While many of Metaphor's hardest battles play out like turn-based puzzles, it's quite the thrill when you're able to devise a plan to overcome enemies who have specific quirks or are just flat-out powerful. There's a satisfaction in figuring out the system in that it doesn't feel like you're exploiting it, but rather understanding how to take advantage of the tools within its flexible RPG progression.
Burst forth!
Weaving in simple real-time action also lets you smack an enemy around to then gain the advantage when initiating combat, lest you get ambushed yourself. It works wonders for churning through fodder since you can hack and slash low-level enemies without having to engage in a turn-based battle at all.
Right there. Steal!
So, like its social sim mechanics, the combat system is a smart evolution of the touchstones that make an Atlus RPG. Also, like those that came before it, Metaphor has a striking sense of style. You can see it clearly in the menus and UI elements, but that ethos extends to its world and character designs too. Sure, Atlus is playing into the fantasy genre this time, but it is so distinctly of the studio's aesthetic, one that you just don't see in other games. An inventive, grotesque style is juxtaposed with the beautiful landscapes you visit on your journey and the anime cutscenes that bring the critical story moments to life. It may not be the most technically impressive game, but it makes a strong case for art direction being more important than raw graphical fidelity. That unique fantastical vibe is supported by excellent music from longtime Persona composer Shoji Meguro. It's a heavily orchestral soundtrack with some wild opera-style vocals that create a sort of gravitas whether you're stepping into a new city or ambushing an enemy mob for the 100th time. It took some time for it to grow on me, but before I knew it, I'd wake up with the melodies of the battle and town themes stuck in my head, humming along to them as I got deeper into my playthrough. It's not necessarily the emotional experience I've gotten from Meguro's other soundtracks, but it is a strong and crucial part of Metaphor's identity.
Rally behind me! I will shield you from injustice. Rise above birth and circumstance, for they mean nothing!
Metaphor is unapologetic in how it explicitly delivers its message, and I appreciate that it largely understands the dynamics behind inequality and that it takes collective action to uplift those in need. It also has the teeth to show that achieving it is not clean or easy. There's a constant through line about how those in power prey on the fears and anxieties of the people to turn them against each other, and its electoral storyline explores how manipulative tyrannical figures can be in no uncertain terms. Admittedly, its penchant for speaking plainly can cause it to repeat itself or rely on cliches. Tucked within that, however, are sharp, poetic lines that show that this story knows the material it's working with. In some respects, Metaphor can be idealistic, but it's aware of idealism's limitations and earns its hopeful moments by building a crew of characters who put in the work to fight the injustices within their kingdom. For as grand as its story gets, Metaphor still takes the time for camaraderie to blossom among one of the best RPG casts in recent memory. There are heartfelt, intimate moments, endearing goofs for levity, and displays of strength as they fight for each other. It's a party that reflects the ever-present theme of diversity being one of humanity's greatest strengths, and in the year of our Lord 2024, it's nice to have a powerful story say that outright. In a year that's been full of personally affecting stories and games, like A Dragon Infinite Wealth, Persona 3 Reload and its DLC, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, 1000 Times Resist, Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail, all of which I have reviewed, Metaphor still manages to secure a special place in my heart. It doesn't just resonate in specific moments, it also serves as a reminder that there's still a bigger world out there, and it's one that we can change for the better no matter how small our efforts may seem. If its main thesis is to express what fiction can do for our reality, my hope is that it resonates with others who can take its message to heart too.
You'll be a hero. Trust me.
There's a certain familiarity to Metaphor ReFantazio, but Atlus takes the principles of its already excellent RPGs and refines them in a way that effortlessly ushers you through its brutal and sometimes whimsical fantasy world. The Archetype system brings satisfying progression along with all the new wrinkles added to the turn-based combat for some great hard-fought battles, and the social elements are streamlined to better deliver the most important aspects of the stories they tell. And for all its cliches, there's a powerful sense of purpose behind this adventure. I felt a unique warmth in its message because it's driven by the ideals of a just society, and smartly contextualizes it in surprising ways. Metaphor ReFantazio is poetic in that, and at times idealistic, but it also understands its complexities and that change requires requires action, and that even far-fetched fantasy stories can serve as inspiration to make our world a better place. In a year full of tremendous RPGs, be sure to check out my reviews of Persona 3 Reload and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and for everything else, stick with IGN.